computer games and simulations.
Games are a lot of fun. Sometimes I think the word game is stuck on almost everything that isn't serious. If you play music, if you draw pictures with a computer, that's not a game. You don't get a score, but we call it games. And there's sometimes this down thing. Don't play games. Don't play around on the computer. And yet there's a lot of good can come from game playing. I was just playing UMI's Motor Mania, which comes on a cassette tape here. And that one is a rather nice game for hand-eye coordination. I suspect it doesn't teach rules of the road terribly well, but all games have a purpose, and I'd like to talk about that more in a moment. Games, of course, come on cassette tape, as I've shown. There are games which are on disc. Here's Space Rescue. We'll look at that in a moment. And, of course, games, the quickest way to get a game into the machine is to plug it in on a cartridge on the back of the computer. Let's take a look at some more games. They show off the computer very, very well, and it's often the best way to assess a computer's graphics and sound features. I'll load Space Rescue into the computer. So Space Rescue is sometimes called Benji. You can see the little dog in here, which is going to help you on your voyage of discovery. Now, the rather interesting thing about this game is it has a high educational content. It also has a lot of rules. You'll need the little book to go with it if you want to do it. Let's go and take a look at the objective of the game by indicating in our joystick what we want to see. Space Rescue. We'll pick a rank for Benji. We'll make that fairly low for an easy game. A lot of instructions here, but let's get straight to the game. Now, we're ready to play. And the first thing that we know is that we're supposed to look around and look for lost scientists and bring them back to Earth, and that's okay. But I'd like you to look at the educational content of this game. Let's take a look here. I'm going over to take a look at details on the various planets. For example, if I call up details on Earth, here's a great deal of quite accurate statistics on the planet Earth. Let's go back and let's look for details on, for example, the planet Saturn. And here's the known information on that planet. In other words, you can play the game. You can also learn quite a bit about what's going on within these within the solar system, for example. Okay, we'll very simply do a little bit of traveling around among the planets, looking for our scientists, but we certainly won't play this game through. Let's go back and let's say to the engine room. Okay, here's an engine room report, and we would like to go to, why don't we go to Jupiter, and here we go, and let's do it. Off we go. We're on our way to Jupiter. Now, at this point we have control of our craft. Down we go to the surface looking for our scientists. I'm afraid things are getting very busy on Jupiter, and we really don't want to show all of the interesting things that can happen on this particular exploration. What I'd like to point out, however, is that much of this kind of game and many other games are based on a good deal of useful information. You play the game, and whether you know it or not, you're learning a great deal more about the world around you. Now, beyond games, there's a closely related kind of program which is called a simulation, which actually attempts to imitate something, perhaps a solar system, perhaps a microcomputer chip, and those can be very useful in education and for other things. I'd like to turn to another program, and I'd like to show you the COCO program, which simulates the inside of a microprocessor. Let's take the COCO program, also by HES, and let's put it into our computer. I'd like to show you some of the parts here. Once again, an instruction book. We're simulating a large fictional computer. This is an interesting thing. This plugs into the joystick part. It's part of a security connection, sometimes called a dongle, and that will make sure that you're an authorized user of this package. Let's plug it in where the joystick goes, and very soon we'll be ready to load in the COCO program. Here we go. COCO is a program which simulates the internal workings of a microprocessor. What we have are the internal registers that we could never see in an ordinary microprocessor. Now, what we see on the screen is a group of mythical registers, real registers in this mythical microcomputer. Down towards the center, we have our three information registers, A, X, and R, they're called in this case. On either side, we have memory, which is called H and L for high and low. We have 5 locations in each. Over to the right, we have a score, which tells us how efficient our program is. Our I/O, which means our input-output area, what's coming in and going out. The next command that we'll execute. And finally, the status indicator telling us what we're doing at the moment. Along the top, we have the commands that we may enter. We're going to tell the machine to run in just a moment. And across the top also we have the messages that may turn out if we do something wrong. Along the bottom is our program, and we'll ask the program to run now and see how the internal workings of the computer can be demonstrated and animated on the screen. Let's take a look at these instructions. We can see that a value is being moved into the A register. That's the first instruction. And so on. The various instructions will be performed as they go. Now, this isn't the real microcomputer we're seeing, but some of the principles can be shown in here and some of the internal architecture. And so we have a simulation activity, which is also a challenge to the students. After they go through example programs, they might be asked, here, try your hand at making a program that will do this in the COCO microcomputer. So we can see a simulation can do something that we couldn't do in real life. You can't really look inside a microchip and see the registers in there. Now, that's probably the thing about games. It's a challenge. And make no mistake about it, it's a mental challenge. So what we have going here is a game's a great motivator. You want to write something, even in education, to make people want to play, to be challenged, think about how the games do it. Then you'll learn a little bit more how to use a computer effectively.